Hello and welcome to my review for Mouse PI for Hire, a recent first-person shooter that just came out on all major platforms that I have been looking forward to for quite some time, and I am happy to admit this is a very solid video game. I have my flaws and my problems with it. It's nowhere near perfect, but this is a very, very fun video game. I do have to be a little pedantic right off the gate here. This is not a boomer shooter. A lot of people will call this a boomer shooter, and I think they are wrong. Sure, it has 2D sprites and that kind of stuff, but this game has a lot more in common with BioShock Infinite than it does with your traditional boomer shooters like Dusk. This is getting pretty common, where a lot of times first-person shooters with retro aesthetics will just get labeled underneath the umbrella of boomer shooter, mainly because I think we can admit that there is a very different feel between your old Dooms or Duke Nukem and like BioShock Infinite or Call of Duty and stuff like that I don't think should just be wrapped up within the same genre. Now, again, this is not that big of a deal. It's a very pedantic little issue. But the same thing happened with Bolt Gun that came out a couple years ago. Bolt Gun is not a boomer shooter. It's just a first-person shooter that uses a retro aesthetic to help set itself apart. But it does not have the gameplay loop. It does not have the mission structure. It does not have the core structure that defines the boomer shooter. One that is supposed to be extremely close to your old Doom, Duke Nukem, and that kind of stuff. Games like Dusk is a actual true boomer shooter. This is just a first-person shooter that, again, has a lot more in common with BioShock Infinite and even like Doom 2016, which is also not a boomer shooter, just a retro-inspired first-person shooter. Now, this is not to invalidate the games in any capacity. All of the games I have mentioned here are phenomenal, including Mouse PI for Hire, but it is a genre distinction that I think needs to be a little more clear. So with that out of the way, we can actually get to the real review here. So, Mouse PI for Hire, like I said, is a recent first-person shooter that just came out. I have been playing through the game on PC. I have done one playthrough on normal and have probably played about half of the game through on hard. And while this is a very satisfying and fun first-person shooter, like I alluded to just a moment ago, I definitely have a fair share of issues with it. So with no further ado, let's just get right into it. So starting off with like your basic presentation stuff, the game is fucking gorgeous. As you could probably already see with the gameplay being shown, it uses a nice and very well animated rubber hose animation style and has this nice black and white noir atmosphere to it, because this is a noir shooter. And when it comes to the actual animations, it is phenomenal. All of them are wonderful, from the weapon reload animations. Whenever you upgrade a weapon, you'll get a really nice animation as well. Reload animations are phenomenal. Character idle animations are really, really good. Basically, any animation you can think of in the game is truly excellent. And it's not just the animations either. The character models are fantastic. I love all of them. They're so creative and fun and just excellent. They all very distinct from one another. And it's very clear that there was a lot of time, love, care, and passion just oozing out of all of these characters. I'm constantly aware of just how much the developers must have loved creating the art assets for this game, and they did a very, very good job at bringing them all to life. This game is fucking gorgeous. It is one of the best looking games of the year, and I wouldn't be surprised if this at least wins some award and is on people's like best looking game of the year lists, because it looks really, really, really good. As for the rest of the performance, I think it's solid. I did have some frame drops, but I think that's more of a me problem and my PC than it is a issue with the actual game. And then for the glitches, very minimal. On top of that, it seems like the developers are quick to try to squash any of those bugs that do show up. So that's good. So this is not going to be one of those games where it comes out and it's just in a very unplayable, broken state or anything like that. This is a very finished game, and it feels like it's got a decent layer of polish all over it, and it feels good to play without too many hiccups. So very happy there. That's never a certainty in the year of our Lord of 2026. A lot of times games will just come out barely functioning. Thankfully, this is not one of those situations. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the story. This is going to be a relatively spoiler-free section. I will be going deeper into spoilers later on in the video because there is stuff I want to talk about within the actual storyline. But for the basic of it, it's a detective noir story. You start the game with a missing magician, and you, as Jack I forgot the last name of the main character, Jack Mouse guy, has to go and investigate that. And as you go, it slowly unravels and turns into this fucking huge problem. How this missing magician bleeds into other issues like a murder, and there's kind of like a genocide and a shrew trafficking organization in the background. How it all kind of meshes together into political corruption and all of this kind of stuff is really well done. It's the pacing of this game is truly phenomenal. And it had me kind of glued to my seat for most of the runtime. I was constantly excited what new clue we were going to get, where that was going to take us, how deep into this rabbit hole we just kept going down through. And it was just a very satisfying story to watch unfold. And it also has a good sense of like visual progression as well, because one of the things you do is you have this like detective board. Every time you complete a mission, you go back to the detective board and hang up your clues. It's not like interactive in any capacity. You don't get to like connect the dots or any of that. It's just kind of an animation that happens. It's really fun because the game starts off by just the board's really empty. It's just you're just tracking some basic clues around this missing magician. But at the end of the game, you look like Charlie Day from that one Always Sunny meme where he's just like next to that insane fucking bulletin board. And that's what it kind of feels like by the time you reach the end of this game. It is just absolute chaos and the strings are all over the place and it's this massive tangled web that you watched slowly unfold from just one lead. And it's handled very well. It's very clear. I think a lot of the effort from the development team was not only put into the art style and the character design, but in the story it was trying to tell as well. This is where this game's strongest element is, through the atmosphere, the world, but also the storyline. And I think it's a solid detective noir. I mean, it's a parody, right? It takes place in Mouseburg and everything's mouse related. There's cheese references all over the place. It is a noir parody, but on top of that, it, I think, creates a decent noir story. Like, I don't think it's going to win any awards or anything like that, but it's got a lot of really good heart to it. Some good, solid social and political commentary underpinning it all. A really good character arc through your main character, Jack, and how he interacts with his friends. It does a really good job at bringing this world to life in a very satisfying and gripping way. Talking to the characters and getting to know them in the world is really tied into the gameplay loop very well. It's very clear they want you to spend a lot of time talking to these characters. How this game actually works and what the core gameplay loop is that you'll have a mission, you'll have a objective where you have to go, and you'll spend some time talking to the characters around the area to pick up any kind of side missions. There's usually a side objective that goes with any mission in the game. You'll do that, get into the car, and then you get this like really cool top-down like level selecting map where you'll drive to like the location. It's nothing super serious. It's just a nice good transitional scene basically. And I like the inclusion there. You'll drive to the location, you'll select level, you'll just shoot the fuck out of people, talk to people, do whatever you need to do in that level. You'll then get back into the car, return back to the office, talk to any characters that were relevant if you learned any information, pin your clues up on the board, then head down, upgrade your weapons, talk to other people, see if they have any side missions, and then head out into a new level. And then you just do that for about 12 hours. The game is around 12 hours long, and that's it. And I think it's a solid gameplay loop. I was engrossed. I never felt like it overstayed its welcome. It lasted as long as I kind of wanted it to last, at around 12 hours, which I feel like was a good length for this game. And this is probably the strongest aspect of the game. It's that loop I thought was very fun, and it kept me engaged, and the talking to people is definitely what I think is the strongest elements of these games. Engaging in the world, learning about the world is where this game really begins to shine. And it's not that the gameplay's bad, but it is, I think, its weakest link. Now, the actual core gunplay is very satisfying. I think the sound effects from the guns are good. The audiovisual feedback you get when you kill somebody is very solid. I like how much like inky blood sprays out whenever you actually kill somebody. So it all feels very good. It's a very good feeling game. It's just, I think my biggest problem is this is just really easy. I found this game very, very easy. Like I said, my first playthrough was on normal, but even my hard playthrough wasn't challenging me very much, which is kind of a shame because they put some work into the arenas in this game. There's a lot of arenas you get locked into and have to fight a bunch of enemies, and while they are all quite well designed, I never really felt myself having to take make use of that intricate arena design to gain an edge. If you've ever played Doom Eternal, that game has some of the best arena designs for this type of genre, where you're a single player first person shooter where you go into these arenas and you're locked in there and you have to kill a bunch of enemies. Doom Eternal does a phenomenal job at that. Because of the actual difficulty balancing and how the core game mechanics work, you have to kind of, especially on the higher difficulties, you have to make use of the terrain. You have to make use of the environment of the arena in order to actually emerge victorious. And that's very satisfying. It's what makes that game so much fun every time you encounter one of those new arenas, because especially if you're playing on those harder difficulties and you're unfamiliar with them, you're probably going to die a couple times before you really get the lay of the land, and you start then strategizing as like, okay, I need to be here once these guys spawn, and or here when these guys spawn in order to actually kill this guy, and blah 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 blah. And it creates this really interesting combat flow. One part strategy, two parts reflexes, and just creates a very solid combat loop. And they kind of tried to do that here as well. They give you a lot of movement abilities throughout the game. There's a grappling hook, there's a glide, there's a double jump, and the arenas do incorporate these elements. So you'll have hooks that you can grapple on and swing, and you'll have like jump off points where you can like glide, but they never go on long enough for me to really ever feel like I need to make use of them. And while that's not always the biggest issue, because like I can just force myself to make use of those elements to have more fun, the problem I really have is that they're just very short. I think this game would be a lot better, and they don't even need to change the difficulty balancing, like the enemy HP or the damage that you deal or the damage that they deal. All they really need to do is just throw more enemies at you, and I think this game would be a lot better balanced, requiring the players to actually utilize the environment more to their advantage than it just being there. They also have some like really nicely placed environmental stuff. So there's barrels that you can destroy, there's like hanging anvils or pianos that you can knock down and it will crush an enemy, and they're all very well placed. There's clearly a lot of thought that went into the construction of these arenas to create good environmental kill options that you could use to your advantage. But again, because of the enemy amount, I would use them, but I never used them as much as I wanted to. There were so many arenas I would walk into as like, this is a really well set up arena. There's some good options here. I know I'm going to get into a massive gunfight and I'm going to have to take use of that. And then I get in there and like only 20 enemies spawn that I'm able to take out incredibly quickly with like the Tommy gun and never feel the need to have to make use of that. And that I kind of felt was a bit of a shame. I definitely think this game would have served better is one, a higher difficulty option. Again, hard is the highest one. And while that definitely felt a lot better balanced than normal, it still wasn't anywhere near what I would have wanted it to be. I'm not saying make this game like punishingly difficult like Doom Eternal or any of the Doom games for that matter, but it needed a little bit more. It needed a little more confidence to just send it to the player. And now this isn't the biggest criticism. Despite actually really enjoying difficult games, I do tend to prefer games that are a little too easy than a little too difficult, because me as the player, I can always create my own difficulty. Right? I can create limitations. I can do challenge runs and do things like this. So I can make it easy or harder on me if I want. But it's hard to make a game easier on you if you feel like the game is too difficult. Because a lot of the times games will run into these traps where they'll try to make it really difficult and then they'll just create this poorly balanced bullshit that they throw at you, and it's incredibly frustrating and ruins like bits of the game. This is actually something I thought Doom Eternal actually was pretty guilty of, especially within its DLCs, with like the DLCs of Doom Eternal very much seeming like the developers wanted to try to like one up the base game and make it as hard as possible, and I think they overcorrected way too much, creating gunfights in that game that are just a lot more frustrating than I thought were fun. And so that's not an issue here, and I think that is partly intentional because this is a lot more of a relaxed, casual game than Doom Eternal. It's not trying to make you like an absolute like first-person shooter god. They're creating a solid combat system that complements the world decently well. And I think they, for the most part, nailed it, but I think they could have hit the player a little bit harder, and I think that would have been okay. One of the issues to build onto this that I had, especially when it comes to the create your own challenge run, some of the power-ups, because there's power-ups in this game. You have a pepper that can give you like fire shots. You drink this like coffee and then you pull out like finger guns, and that just fucking wrecks people. There's like spinach you can eat where you get really buff and you can start punching people, and these are fun to use, except some of them are just not optional, especially like the coffee or the spinach one. They'll force you to use them, and they'll have like unlimited time, which trivializes already pretty easy fights even more so. So there'll be times where like you'll get like a massive ambush and there's like a solid amount of enemies coming at you, but it just doesn't matter because I have this like super overpowered power up, and now I just fucking lay waste to all of them without having to even break a sweat. And I just say to myself, is like, well, fuck. That would have been a really good fight if I didn't have this power up. I wish I could have just not had the power up. So I don't know why they felt the need to force certain power ups. I get that you would do it the first time to teach the player the power up, but that coffee one where you get the finger guns, I don't think you ever just encounter that normally in the game. That is always forcefully given to you at certain select few arenas throughout the playthrough. And I thought that was kind of a peculiar choice and something I would like to actually see change in future updates. On top of that, it desperately needs another difficulty. If you are experienced with first-person shooters, I do highly recommend you play your first run through on hard. Unfortunately, there's nothing greater than that. But normal, I felt, was way too easy for the entire run. And that's kind of my biggest issue with the combat, is I just think it was too easy. Everything else is really solid. Like I said, the arena design is great. The boss fights are phenomenal. I really like the boss fights in this game. They're all super creative. None of them feel like each other. None of them feel redundant. None of them feel like they are just thrown in there because they had to have a boss fight. They are all very well designed, with really cool gimmicks that complement the core gameplay loop as opposed to detract from it. So yeah, I loved all of the bosses and looked forward to any time I clearly walked into an arena and there was a boss fight I had to deal with, because I always knew I was going to be in for something special. Again, kind of wish they were harder, so I had to learn the mechanics better, but you can really just kind of brute force your way through them, which sucks, but at least are very entertaining regardless of that. So that's at least good. I really enjoy the boss fight. Another issue I do have with the combat, I think the weapons are kind of shit. Some of them are really fun. I like the weird goo gun that will like dissolve people. I thought was always a lot of fun. The Tommy gun, or as it's called in the game, the James gun, is just a fucking powerhouse. You get two different types of shotguns. A regular shotgun that I pretty much used throughout my whole playthrough. I thought that was a really solid base shotgun, and then you get like a super shotgun. And some of the guns later on in the game, I'm not going to spoil them here, are actually quite creative, and I like them quite a bit. In the visuals, I don't know why, but I genuinely feel like the guns in the later half of this game are even weaker than the ones in the beginning. I mean, nothing's as weak as the pistol. That gun is basically fucking useless in this game. I never really used it once I got anything else. Not only is it just not super powerful, and it's outdone by the Tommy gun, which you get relatively early, it also has like a pitiful amount of ammo available. I constantly found myself running out of ammo. And that's, you know what, actually, hold on. That leads me to another issue. I know I'm all over the place, sorry. The ammo levels in this game are bad. They're like Doom Eternal bad, but that served that game. I know I keep comparing this to Doom Eternal, but it's because it's one of the best first-person shooters ever made, and I do feel like this game is heavily influenced by Doom Eternal, so that's why I keep comparing it to Doom Eternal. But like, so in Doom Eternal, you have very limited ammo. That's like one of the things that you'll hear a lot of people bitch about that game, but it works because it's built into the combat loop. It's very clear they designed the game to have limited ammo, so you have a lot of ways to gather ammo. It's built into the combat loop. It is not here. You have to pick up the ammo, and it's fucking annoying when you're just out of ammo for like every single gun, because you can only hold like 20 shotgun shells at you at any given time, and that super shotgun or the double barrel shotgun is the worst at this. I think you really can only hold like fucking 12 extra bullets, and the gun just isn't that powerful to begin with. It's not like the super shotgun in Doom where it's just that thing will fucking lay anything you point at down. No, there are a lot of enemies that can just tank it in this game, and that sucks because it was a weapon I never used, because it not only was it just not very powerful, but it had an insanely low amount of ammo that I knew if I switched to it, I would be having to switch to a different weapon almost immediately. And this is just kind of a big issue with a lot of the weapons, is they're just not as powerful as I would want them to be. Now, you can buff these weapons. There is a weapon progression system that you can engage with by finding these these blueprints and then use these blueprints to buy upgrades for the weapon, that definitely has an impact. The Tommy gun, which is the best weapon in the game, you can feel the improvement as you upgrade the weapon. It would have been kind of nice to see if they just decreased some of the weapons. I just think there's too many here, and a lot of them are just kind of redundant. Like I said, the double barrel shotgun probably could just go. I just think it's outplayed by the regular shotgun. But this isn't that big of an issue, right? It's not a game-breaking problem. It's just, I like when games have a lot of weapons, but I like when they are filling niches that only that weapon can have. I'm not a big fan of having redundant weapons. I think it just kind of clutters the game a little bit, and I think this suffers from that. But I would even accept that I'm wrong on this one. I could see some people being like, oh no, that double barrel shotgun just fucking slaps, and I love it, and it's like my favorite weapon in the game, and I'm constantly using it. Or some of the more fun weapons towards the end of the game that I'm not going to spoil for you, because at least visually they're very unique, very creative, very fun. I could see somebody being like, oh, that's my favorite weapon. For me personally, I mostly just relied on the Tommy gun and that goo spraying gun that dissolves people. I thought those were the most powerful weapons, and then if I ran out of ammo for both of those, which happened quite frequently, I would fall back on the regular pump action shotgun. And that was my arsenal for most of the game, and I thought it was fine. I would have liked to try to find a way to incorporate some other weapons, but those three were more than serviceable, and I had a darn good time just plowing through enemies with just those three guns. So even though I wish the weapons were a little stronger or even a little more reduced, I don't think it's that big of an issue. The next issue I had is the enemy variety is depressingly lackluster. I really think I saw most of the unique enemy types by like the first couple hours of the game, and they never really change. Thankfully, the skins do. Depending on what location you will be in, there will be different skins for the enemies, but the core enemy archetypes remain stagnant throughout the entire game, with the exception of one that gets introduced in like the last level of the game that like buffs some enemies. I don't know why they didn't just introduce him like hours before, but you just kind of got your standard enemies. You got some brutes that charge you with melee. You got some bigger brutes that charge you with melee that take a fuck ton more bullets. You've got people with guns, you got bigger guys with guns, little guys that will charge you and sometimes pull out bombs. You got some flying dudes, and I think that's about it. There's probably one or two enemy types that I'm forgetting, but for the most part it is that basic. They're just quite underwhelming enemy types without a lot of diversity between them, and that's kind of sucky. Again, not a big deal. Some of my favorite first-person shooters also have some limited enemy variety, so it's not like it's game breaking, but it is just, I wish I could have seen more. I wish there were more unique enemy types, and especially with how much creativity is constantly oozing out of this game, I think they could have created some real interesting unique enemy types. It would have really strengthened this game a lot, and it's a little unfortunate that the enemy variety is so lacking. It's not game breaking, and it doesn't even really affect my opinion of the game. It's just for a sequel. If we ever do get a Mouse PI for Hire sequel, which I absolutely hope we do, that's one of the things I would really like to see changed, is a lot more enemy variety and pacing it out a little bit better as well. Genuinely, some of the middle of this game could slump a little bit due to that lack of enemy variety. The combat can get very repetitive because you are just constantly fighting the same people over and over again. Thankfully, due to just the core mechanics, it's still satisfying enough that kept me more than engaged for my 12-hour playthrough and for the half playthrough I put on hard difficulty, but it is something they could absolutely fix in the next game. My last issue I have with this game is there's no new game plus, and this game could really benefit from that. This kind of leads into that weapon problem. It would have been nice if I could have played through this game again with all of the weapons that I have acquired on a higher difficulty. Because one, some of those late game weapons are really hard to upgrade because you have very limited blueprints, which means you have to choose which weapons you want to go throughout the playthrough, which I think is fun. I like that you have very limited blueprints that requires you to have to make choices on which weapons you want to upgrade. The problem is by the time you get some of those later weapons, you don't really have the blueprints or the time to acquire the blueprints to see them at their highest level upgrades outside of maybe like one or two missions, and that's unfortunate. I really wish I could run through the game again and continuously upgrading those weapons so I could see every single weapon that is upgraded without having to put like 5 playthroughs playthroughs of the game in there. Now, I don't know if there is actually enough blueprints throughout the game where you can technically upgrade every single weapon. I did not 100% complete this game, so I don't know. I did not find all the secrets. So maybe you technically can upgrade all the weapons, but I think for most people, they're not going to be able to do that, which again is a cool feature that I like, that I have to make that choice. I just wish that they gave me enough time or found a way that I could actually upgrade those later end weapons to see how they actually performed. Because maybe a lot of those are really good. Like the last 2 weapons you get in the story mode are really cool weapons, and they might be extremely powerful if upgraded fully. But in their base condition, I didn't find them all that powerful, and I didn't have the time to upgrade them up. And this lack of New Game Plus also sucks because, one, there's no ability to replay missions in this game, which sucks because inside of the missions, there are points of no return. So there were a few times I missed out on completing a side mission because I just accidentally hit a point of no return. And then for that playthrough, it's fucked. I cannot go back and do that. And so that's unfortunate. I think this game either needs a New Game Plus or an ability to replay levels. I think that would have improved this game dramatically, because I would have probably even went back to try to see if I could find those other secrets or get the rest of the collectibles or stuff like that if I could have just went back and replayed through the levels. Unfortunately, you can't. So be cautious of that in your playthroughs if you are planning to play through this game. Be aware there are points of no return in the levels, and you may be locked out of finding certain secrets or completing side missions if you end up triggering one of those points of no return. Something to just be aware of. Not the biggest deal, like all of the issues in this game, not game breaking, but just something I think they can improve with future updates and especially in a sequel. And thank God that's the end of my complaints. That's all I really have. And it's mostly just focused on that of the gameplay. Everything else about this game is very solid. There's also like a card collecting minigame. I forgot to mention this. That's based off of baseball that I thought was decently fun. I'm not the biggest fan of in-universe card games. Never really played Gwent that much in The Witcher 3. And I just don't tend to engage with that. But if you do, I had fun playing the baseball thing. I presume it gets quite difficult as you go up, and there's a reward for it. If you win 20 matches of the baseball card game, you can unlock like a certain locker that I think gives you a special weapon. I don't know what's in there, didn't unlock it myself, but for people that enjoy those types of card games, that's a solid motivation that would keep you playing through the game. And then you can also collect cards throughout the levels. One of the secrets and collectibles in the game is those baseball cards. It's a completely unnecessary addition that I think shows that the game designers actually really care about this game. It's a really cute addition, and I'm really happy it's here, even if I didn't personally engage with it as much as I would have liked, because again, just don't really care about deck builders inside of games, but very cool addition. Happy it's here. This has been a very solid game. I really enjoy Mouse PI for Hire, and I do recommend it to anyone that is a fan of noir, of animation, of first-person shooters, of pretty much anything. I think a lot of people will be able to find a solid amount of enjoyment within this game. I very much highly recommend it, and I think you should check it out. And I'm looking forward to seeing any expansions, DLC, sequels, updates, or anything else that fleshes out this game a little bit more. It's nowhere near perfect, but it's a very solid game. Don't listen to that god-awful IGN review. This is not going to be my game of the year in any capacity. That's already been reserved for Resident Evil 9. I definitely think I could see this popping up on my top 10 list of my favorite games of the year for sure. And a lot of that's going to be what I talk about next in the story spoilers bit. It's just a very solid and fun video game. It feels like those PS3 first-person shooters like BioShock Infinite and that kind of stuff. And it just feels like a classic and good video game from the PS3 era with a absolutely gorgeous and wonderfully beautiful art style and a solid combat system to boot. Flawed, but very good. That's going to be it for the spoiler-free section. So I highly urge you to play the game before listening to the rest of the story, because I will probably be spoiling the rest of it. So I'll give you a few seconds to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1... Okay, I presume anyone that is still here is willing to hear the spoilers. This game's fucking story is weird, and I was not expecting it. I was expecting this to be kind of a subtle noir parody. I wasn't expecting this game to take place in Nazi Germany. That caught me real off guard when it was like, holy shit, that's a Nazi. And there is absolutely a genocide happening to the shrews in this game, and it was real weird at first. I really like it though. Because yeah, this story devolves into genocide, trafficking, police corruption, Nazis, and so much more. And it was just directions I was not expecting it to go. And it gets fucking weird. Like one of the last levels in this game, you go down to hell. You go to fucking hell in this game to find like the magician. And it's just wacky. It's a wacky good time. And I feel like it does a decent job with the social commentary as well. One of the things I really like about this game is Jack's character arc. He kind of starts off as this ignorant dude that's kind of absorbed into his own world, but as he goes and progresses and as he talks to some of the characters, he actually starts to gain a much better appreciation for the societal issues that are taking place and the systemic problems that underpin those issues. There's a really good conversation you have with the bartender in the game, who's a shrew, after you wrap up the shrew trafficking storyline, where Jack's like really excited that he solved this problem, and he goes to the bartender and is like, you shrews don't need to worry anymore, we're done, I solved it, I fixed the trafficking issue. And he's like, Jack, my sweet summer child, like this is a victory, but like there's a lot more to go on here. There'll be another captain later on in a week or two, and this same problem will persist. And Jack slowly wakes up to that realization that while he did something good, there's still so much work that needs to be done. And I thought that was like really well done, and it was impactful, but it's not defeatist. It's very still optimistic, and Jack has this really good line about how like this is just one step on a road that I am happy to keep walking on until we hit the end. He understands that, and he learned through this conversation that it is a good thing that what happened, it's not the end all be all of the war, and that one that he is recognized and one he is determined to continue going for. Because that's what it's like in real life, right? Victories in real life can sometimes feel anticlimactic, can be relatively underwhelming, but they're still important, and that every step you take in the right direction is a good one. And oftentimes those are essential steps, necessary steps for bigger, more satisfying victories. To achieve true change and to make things truly better, it requires those sometimes small and more anticlimactic victories. But it is important to not be clouded by those victories and think that anytime you achieve that small victory, you're done. You gotta keep fighting. This also same thing happens when you're talking to Tammy, who Jack has kind of taken a like pseudo father figure role to. And Tammy also like will just correct Jack on his ignorance of the greater systemic problems, and will even just kind of call Jack out on his privilege a little bit and say that like this crime isn't necessarily just because these people are wrong or bad or evil or anything like that, and the crime is that these people are swept up into very complex and very sophisticated systems that can lead people to doing more deviant acts. And just so much of this game is about Jack just slowly realizing and understanding the systemic issues that are creating all of this. And this is represented within the core like story progression as well. Like the game starts with like it just being this small little mystery. It's just another day at the office kind of thing. Jack's got to find this missing magician, and then it just slowly unravels to all of these interconnected things, and everything is connected to each other, and it goes so much deeper than just a simple missing magician or a dead person or a trafficking ring. This is a massive systemic problem unfolding here, and Jack is slowly gaining awareness to that. Like, this is the definition of a woke video game. I know that word is used by a bunch of fucking idiots and dipshits. I do wonder how the anti-woke crowd is responding to this game, but it is Jack slowly awaking to the systemic problems underpinning the society. And I thought that was extremely well done. It's not like super introspective. It's not like an absolute masterpiece in this regard. This game is still a noir parody at its core, but it shocked me and left me very pleasantly surprised that they were able to dig deeper into these issues. It is not something I expected when I first put this game on, but I am so happy they included it. And this is what leads me to loving this game as much as I do. This is where I really got invested, is seeing Jack's slow progression and seeing how he interacts with those characters and learning about the world and what is happening here. I thought they did a very good job with that, and it's definitely my favorite aspect of this game, is that slow, introspective journey that Jack goes on. Like I said, it's not something I expected to see at all, but oh, I'm so happy it's here, and this is what turned this game for me. From a solid, fun, first-person shooter to genuinely something fantastic, and it is why it's going to be one of my favorite games of the year. I really liked this, and I liked the story, I liked the world, and I liked how it all came together. It was an extremely well-paced, well-told noir parody that had a deep introspective element to it. It is truly a phenomenal video game. I just wish the gameplay was a little more solid. I think that would have been nice, but this is not a gameplay first kind of game for me. This is a story first kind of game, and the gameplay is there to serve the greater whole, and I think it does a very good job. And that is why Mouse PI for Hire is probably going to be one of my favorite games of the year. I really like it. Unfortunately, I can't really say that in the unspoiler section, because a lot of what I liked about the game are I have to spoil the game rotten, but even outside of that, it's still a very solid video game, and I highly recommend playing Mouse PI for Hire. If you have not picked it up, it's relatively cheap. I think only like $30 too. So it's not like a full priced game, and you get a good 12 to 15 hours out of this game, and you could probably squeeze upwards of 20 to 25 if you go for the completionist run. I think this is a very solid video game. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next video. If you would kindly like, comment, subscribe, share the video, do all that, and I will see you and catch you on the next video. Goodbye.
Curtis, I know hard feelings. Just hard.